A long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack.
With the Star Wars franchise left in ruins thanks to Lucas and the prequels,
which would make an awesome band name,
and the story arc of Kyle Katarn ending comfortably with him as a content but snarky Jedi Master,
I sense a disturbance in the Force.
You always sense a disturbance in the Force.
it was clear the franchise would need some new ideas to survive atrophy. Someone at LucasArts must have taken a good, hard look at their game library and realized the Star Wars universe was severely lacking in role-playing video games. Fortunately, same unknown peon also realized nobody was left at LucasArts who could make one, so this idea was sold off to an outside developer, much like with Jedi Knight 2 and Raven Software. Our newest challenger is BioWare, makers of many awesome RPGs, including the Baldur's Gate series, one of my all-time favorite games.
So what did BioWare do once they got their hands on the Star Wars license? Take it as far away from the movies as possible by going forward into the past, and thus was born Knights of the Old Republic.
Now, I've already said that my knowledge of the Star Wars universe outside the movies is extremely limited, so please pardon any mistakes I make. Knights of the Old Republic was first a nickname for a popular run of Star Wars comics in the 90s from Dark Horse titled Tales of the Jedi. What made these comics popular was the fact that they took place well before the established Star Wars timeline. About 4,000 years, in fact. What I think interested people the most was the chance to see the Jedi Order at a time when they were a larger force of peacekeepers, and not just a hermit living in the desert and a crazy old muppet in a swamp. It was also nice to see the Sith, so often referenced in the movies, as a large army of dark Force users, not a wrinkly old man who liked to zap things and his brutal enforcer.
So now we jump further into the past of a series that already took place a long, long time ago. Okay.
The story of KOTOR is that the Sith Empire is at war with the Old Republic, or just the Republic at this point, I guess, which is weak after already just surviving another war with the Mandalorians. The good Jedi numbers are dwindling because of two reasons. One, they're all turning to the dark side and joining the Sith, and two, the ones that stay are getting killed by the ones from Reason the First. Your character has been assigned to protect Bastila, a Jedi with a special gift to buff and debuff entire fleets of starships. So of course her ship gets sacked by the Sith.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
You bail onto the planet Taris, and the Sith close in to blockade the planet. After escaping Taris, you embark on a quest to find and destroy the Sith's secret weapon, the Starforge, by wandering around a few planets looking for parts of an old map. Yeah, that would sound like a pretty vanilla plot hook if it wasn't for the whole Star Wars universe aspect. The RPG framework behind KOTOR is a modified version of the D20 system. This was a universal role-playing set designed by Wizards of the Coast when they launched Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, and licensed to other game companies to streamline gameplay and rule systems. So since it's built on a tabletop RPG system, there's a lot of random numbers being rolled every time a fight breaks out. It's mostly behind the scenes, so don't fret if you're scared by math. You really only need to concern yourself with getting weapons and armor with increasingly bigger numbers. Still, it's great to have this level of freedom in character customization. You choose from 3 classes, Scout, Soldier, and Scoundrel, choose their stats, and put points into skills like Security, Demolition, Stealth, and best of all, Persuasion. The choices of how your character actually looks aren't as diverse as they were in Jedi Academy, but it's just enough to do the job. While you start off as one of the basic classes, Bastila discovers you have a connection to the Force and puts you up for training as a Jedi. So one training montage and lightsaber construction later, you switch over to one of 3 Jedi classes. Since you basically abandon your original character class once you get your degree in the Force, a popular trick people came up with was just to not level up your character at all at the start of the game, and then spend the experience when you unlock your Jedi class. I have to say it's kind of weird how the Jedi Council is willing to put the whole war effort on hold just so they can train one chump who's Force sensitive.
Fellow members of the Jedi Council, we must act now if we are to stop the Sith. Every day their fleet grows while our numbers thin. We must act swiftly and decisively if we are to... What's that? Oh, you want training as a Jedi? Sure, we've got some time to kill.
The first level is a basic tutorial to get you used to the controls and gameplay, but it's really clunky for a couple reasons. You can't skip it, so every time you make a new character you have to spend 10 minutes jumping through hoops and pop-up tips. And the whole thing takes place while you're on a ship that's being boarded and blown apart by the Sith, which doesn't seem like the best time to learn about inventory management. The controls work alright, but you'll find them confusing and the combat a bit frustrating after the action-heavy Jedi Knight series. The lightsaber fights are still really stylish, but you have less control over it. You can only choose your actions every 6 seconds, and the turn-based combat is a bit stiff overall. Ranged fighters just stay in one place, but still somehow dodge your blasts, while melee fighters charge the first person they see. Coordinating your party members' attacks and special abilities are key to surviving certain battles. The game falls into a bit of a rut once you leave Dantooine after your Jedi training. Travel to a planet, do some quests, maybe recruit a new party member, find a piece of the map after clearing the main quest, move on to the next planet. That's not to say the planets are boring and samey. Each one requires a different approach to finding the star map. Diplomacy or murder on Tatooine, espionage on Manaan, and a whole lot of subterfuge on Korriban. You may remember that planet from Jedi Academy as being a burial planet for the Sith. This is probably my favorite planet in the game, as you have to infiltrate a Sith Academy to gain access to the star map. There's all kinds of dangers for good characters and temptations for evil characters, and the whole time you have to be mindful of your actions for fear of being discovered too early. You can't really botch the mission, but the setting really works well so you go along with it. Manaan's also a cool planet. It's a neutral world where the Sith and Republic have bases, but can't fight for risk of losing access to the planet's valuable natural resources. Of course, both sides are plotting to get the other one off the planet, so you have to do a little spy work before they'll tell you where to find the star map. As your list of allies grow, you learn more about them by chatting with them on the ship or during a quest. It's a nice way to interact with your supporting cast and learn more about the world and how they fit into it. Although a lot of the time the good guys are just bemoaning mistakes they made in the past, while the tough, evilish guys are talking about the time they blew up someone with 12 grenades. HK-47, the assassin droid, is probably the best character to come out of this series. He's not a very complex character, but he's definitely the funniest and he has the best lines. He's like the Deadpool of the Star Wars universe.
Suggestion. Perhaps we could dismember the organic. It would make it easier for transport to the surface.
Hey, you can't just rip me to pieces. I'll die.
Amendment. I did forget that. Stupid frame non-compartmentalized organic meat bags.
And to think, these things from Jedi Academy were considered assassin droids. Raven Software, fail! You've probably noticed I'm being skimpy with the details on the plot this time. Well, KOTOR has one of those plots that sounds silly on paper.
Find 4 magic maps scattered throughout the galaxy to find the secret of defeating the bad guys.
It's actually very well written and throws you a couple of real game-changing curveballs. And I'm usually pretty good at predicting plot points and twists, but the stuff that happens around Act 3 of KOTOR really surprised me. So I'm not going to give any more details on the plot for fear of spoiling it. I already did that once to a friend, so you're just going to have to play it and judge for yourself. Or check Wikipedia if you're that desperate. The main story carries the game well enough, but it wouldn't be an RPG without side quests. Some of them are really obvious, help the poor for light side points, kill the innocent for dark side points setups. But other times you're settling land disputes, tracking down fugitives, finding evidence for a trial, or the occasional big monster hunt. If you're desperate for cash and like racing games, you can take up swoop bike racing on the different systems. Speaking of side quests, let's talk about Pazaak. It's almost a strange tradition for RPGs to include some kind of gambling minigame, and in KOTOR we have Pazaak. The game is like Blackjack, but with a couple twists. The goal is to take turns drawing cards until you reach 20, and if you do so without going over 3 times, you win. You draw a random hand of cards you can play on your turn to increase or decrease your score. Simple enough, but with a decent strategy element to it. It would be a nice addition to the game if it wasn't so completely pointless and repetitive. The gamblers you meet only wager insultingly small sums, so while they have a seemingly infinite amount of cash, it takes forever to win a decent amount off them. That's assuming you can win, of course. The gamblers often have much better cards for their side deck before you can find them. And since you play in turns and you always go first, it's very likely you'll go bust before your opponent can. And did I mention that the best cards are often sold for far more than you can win in a single game? BioWare also has this love of puzzles and riddles that they seem to like sprinkling into their games. So on some quests you're forced to do a few brain teasers to solve a puzzle or get past an area. Most of these aren't mandatory, but almost seems like a direct challenge to the player's intellect. Hey, solve this or feel like a chump and miss out on quest experience. This isn't exactly a flaw of the game, but it can throw the player off a bit, and most players will just quick save before attempting a puzzle and just work it out through trial and error. Something else that irked me are these recurring turret sections of the game. Whenever you complete a planet and head to the next one, you come under attack by Sith fighters and have to shoot them down using the turret gun. It's a pretty lame action sequence, but I can see it giving other players a problem, especially if you don't know it's coming and get blown up. It just seems a little unbalanced to throw a live-action firefight into a turn-based combat game. The largest criticism that sticks to this game is the obnoxious inventory system. You'll receive a reward from someone and the game won't tell you what it is. It'll just say, "Item received." So you delve into the inventory screen only to realize it's badly organized and the layout is cramped, making it hard to read item descriptions. The sort button barely helps, since you won't know what category an item will fall under, and there aren't any easy categories like weapons or armor or upgrades. The game also seems to think every item is a new item, so that sort method doesn't work. Now for a game that came out in 2003, the graphics aren't half bad today. Things look like what they are, mostly. The Hutt seem to be a little too animatronic for my tastes, but the other aliens look on par with their film counterparts. It does seem like BioWare was struggling with their graphics engine, as the in-game rendered cutscenes look awkward and don't play out very smoothly.
They have me outnumbered and outgunned, but if I'm going down, I'm taking all of you with me. This thermal detonator will blow us all to bits.
Some background art is obviously flat and two-dimensional, like this arena full of cardboard cutouts. The camera has a fixed rotation around your character, so looking up and down is out. This sort of balances out the fact that most of the levels are flat and linear corridors. There's a button to fast travel back to your ship, but you still spend a lot of time trudging around from place to place. It's worth investing in force speed, but then you have to put up with the blur effect. Also, I always seem to find myself getting stuck on corners, doorways, or sometimes just blocked in a corner by my party members. You might also notice the game recycling the limited number of animations when characters are talking, using the same poses over and over. It's not a major flaw, but it does hurt the immersion. The voice acting isn't really noteworthy, ranging from good to average. This is one of those games where your character is mute, but it works in the game's favor. Your character has a ton of dialogue options to make in conversation, allowing you a larger breadth of choice and more complex dialogue trees. It's also cool to hear a bunch of Star Wars alien languages, but you'll quickly realize they only recorded 4 or 5 dialogue strings for each species, so you often hear the same stuff looped over and over. What makes it annoying is you'll often finish reading the subtitles long before they stop talking, but you can easily skip a line of dialogue with a mouse click. Now, it wouldn't be a decent Jedi game without being able to choose between the light and the dark side, and this time your choices have a lot more weight. Instead of making it about random civilian murder, power choices, or just a yes or no choice, it's about how your character acts in the world around them. It feels very organic, though the majority of the choices are obviously good or obviously evil. I have to laugh that even if you're trying to be the good guy, you can still steal stuff from people's homes without penalty. Going dark side has a much more visible effect on your character's appearance, though the NPCs never seem that put off by it. And choosing light or dark has some real consequences on your party. Some characters may quit the team, and others may attack you outright. Your ultimate choice of good or evil obviously means the game has alternate endings, so you get some added replay value from that. Though because of the popularity of this game, I think this is where the trend of moral choice systems in games really took off. That's not really a mark against the game because it's not BioWare's fault everyone tried to copy them, it's just worth pointing out. Though I've been pointing out a lot of the game's flaws and obstacles, overall it's one of the best RPGs I've ever played. Heck, I'd recommend it to anyone who wanted to give computer RPGs a try. Some parts are slow, navigating the world is on the clunky side, and towards the end the difficulty can really ramp up, but the excellent balance of story, characters, and the game world makes this easily enjoyable even for non-Star Wars fans. There is a reason people still talk about this game. It was a hit then, selling over 1 million copies at release, and it's still a fun game now. I gotta admit, I'm disappointed in the game and in myself. Apart from nitpicking about some of the bugs and slower parts of the game, I really can't complain about it. It's still a solid and enjoyable RPG, and a welcome addition to the Star Wars game library. And I could have used a good stress relief too. How am I gonna get rid of all this excess bile and cynicism now? What's this? Ooh.
There you are, Shen.
Father! Mr. Matale.
Rahesa!
Father!
Mr. Sandro.
Nurik! Alan!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rucker!